Today, we're going to lift the curtain on AI. We're going to demystify these large language models, LMMs, and break down exactly how they go from being basically nothing to the incredible tools we're all starting to use every single day. So, you've definitely talked to an AI, right? Maybe you asked it for a recipe, or to help you with some code, or just to write a silly poem. But have you ever really paused and thought, what is actually going on behind that chat window? How does it get what you're saying and come up with something totally new? Well, lucky for us, an AI expert over at Adobe actually mapped out the entire thing in this amazing 20-step guide. So for this explainer, we're going to use that guide as our roadmap and walk through the whole journey together. We've split this whole journey into a few key parts. We'll kick things off with the absolute basics. Then we'll look at how its massive knowledge library gets built. After that, we'll walk through its intense training schedule, see it in action, and finally, explore why it's built to just keep on learning forever. All right, let's dive right in. Before we can even get into how an AI thinks, we have to get on the same page about what it even is. So at its heart, a large language model is a really specific kind of AI. The best way to think about it is like a super brain that's been fed a library the size of the entire internet. Its whole job is just to understand the patterns and how we talk and write so incredibly well that it can make a really, really good guess about what word should come next. And that simple skill is what lets it chat, write, and sometimes even seem to reason with us. And that's the perfect lead-in to our first big phase, building the library. Because you can't have a library without books, and you definitely can't train an AI without a mind-boggling amount of data. Looking at our map here, this first chunk of the process is all about getting the raw materials ready. It's almost like being a librarian for the entire web, deciding which books and articles to put on the shelves, and getting them all prepped for a student to read. And this prep work happens in 4 main steps. First, you gather just unimaginable amounts of text. Then you gotta clean it all up, get rid of personal info, weird formatting. After that, you sort it into categories, and finally, you do this really critical step called tokenization. So, what in the world is tokenization? It sounds technical, but it's pretty straightforward. It's just the process of chopping up all that text, sentences, paragraphs, you name it, into smaller, bite-sized pieces. These tokens can be whole words or parts of words or even just punctuation. And what's really interesting is that different AIs have different vocabularies of these tokens, which actually affects how well they pick up on subtle meanings. And honestly, this analogy just nails it. An AI can't make sense of a whole book at once. It needs all that information chopped up into these little tokens before it can start to see how they all relate to each other, before it can learn the recipe of language. Okay, so our ingredients are chopped. Now it's time to actually start cooking. Let's move on to the training regimen. This is where the model basically goes to school, college, and gets its PhD, all rolled into one. Now, during training, the model isn't just memorizing stuff. No, it's learning this incredibly complex web of connections between all those tokens. It learns grammar, facts, and even a bit of reasoning by doing one simple thing over and over, billions and billions of times, predicting the next token in a sentence. And out of that one simple task, all these complex abilities start to emerge. It's pretty wild. This whole education happens in stages. First, you have the huge initial training, where it learns the basics of language. Then, it gets fine-tuned by humans, who show it really high-quality examples of specific tasks. And finally, there's reward modeling, where humans actually rank the AI's answers to teach it what a good and helpful response actually looks like. And a difference here is really key. Think of it like this. The initial training is like getting a general education by reading every single book in the library. Fine-tuning, on the other hand, is like a grad school seminar, where you study a very specific topic with an expert to become a specialist. Now, to make sure all this learning sticks, there's a clever technique called PPO. What it does, essentially, is make sure the AI improves in small, steady steps. This is super important because it stops the model from making a huge change to get better at one thing, but accidentally forgetting everything it learned before. It's all about slow, stable progress. So the AI has built its library, it's finished its training, school is out. Now we get to the fun part. This is where all that work finally pays off. This is where you and I enter the picture. So the model is now deployed. That means it's live, sitting on a server somewhere, just waiting for you to type something. This is the moment of truth. You type in a simple request, something like, "Tell me a joke about a robot." What happens in that split second isn't magic, but it's pretty darn close.
First, the LLM breaks down your prompt to figure out what you want. It sees the key ideas, joke, and robot. Then it scans its entire internal network of knowledge for all the patterns it's learned about those two things. And finally, it starts building a response, one token at a time, always predicting the most likely next piece to create an answer that makes sense.
And this is the most important thing to get. The AI is not just doing a Google search for a joke someone else already wrote. It is composing a brand new one right there on the spot, using what it's learned about how jokes are structured and what it knows about robots. It's an act of creation, not just finding something.
But hold on, the story doesn't end there. That's our final section. Because for an LLM, graduation day is really just the beginning of a lifetime of learning.
And this is a huge difference from most other software we use. A deployed LLM isn't some finished product you just ship and forget about. No, it's a living system, specifically designed to be updated and improved all the time based on new data and how we interact with it.
And this evolution happens on a bunch of different fronts. It involves constantly updating its safety filters to screen out bad stuff, taking in new information so it doesn't get out of date, learning to personalize its answers for you, and plugging into other apps to become a genuinely helpful tool in your daily life. So, from a chaotic mess of raw data to this constantly improving digital mind, that's the journey. It's a process that's built from the ground up to evolve. And that leaves us with a really big, fascinating question. Now that we understand how they learn, what do we want to teach them next? What are the skills and the values we should be focusing on as these things become an even bigger part of all our lives?